everybody. I know some of you know me in a different role in school. You probably see me perhaps standing at the front on Year 7 New Parents Evening. Maybe some of you, I'm not making any eye contact, may have had conversations with me for all sorts of reasons in school, maybe not always positive. But tonight I'm going to be talking to you about behaviour for learning. Really, I just want us to start by thinking about what it isn't. Okay? It's not that. Right, it's not boys sitting, hanging on my every word or anybody's every word, really smartly dressed. Because actually, when I'm teaching at the front, getting them to think, well, maybe that's what they're thinking. So, and I'm ashamed to say I've probably taught lessons like that. I have to say I've sat in lessons like that. I'm pretty sure you have too. So what is behaviour for learning? What is it that we're wanting staff to understand? Because this presentation really is part of a presentation that was made to staff. And what do you need to know as parents about what we're doing in school that's important? Well, really, that's behaviour for learning. It's impossible to present really as a picture. It's impossible for me to say to you, this is what it looks like, because it can look like so many different things. But the key thing is there's learning going on. And you might go into all sorts of classrooms in school and you might see all sorts of things happening or not happening. And it's really important that when that is the case, we as teachers, boys as learners, and I guess you as parents when they talk to you at home, know what learning is like and what kind of behaviour leads to learning. And also there's these people as well, they like to know about it, and that's not why we do it, obviously, but when the Ofsted inspector arrives, and I think it could be any time soon, he or she, when judging behaviour and safety, will really be looking at pupils' attitudes to learning in the classroom too, as well as are they safe when they're playing out in the quad, what they like in the lunch hall, etc. And obviously that's what we think we are as a school. So that's what we need to make sure we are encouraging, evidencing, and that's seen by Ofsted inspectors. A thirst for knowledge, a love of learning. I think you'll all agree, those boys who are just on the stage now obviously have that. So how do we, as a school, make sure that that's happening? Again, Mr. Julian King, who's just been at the front, explained to staff that's exactly what behaviour for learning is. It's ensuring high levels of, and I think this is the key, engagement as well as participation. So that means we have to think about the things we get boys to do, the way we structure our lessons, and that we've given them the language to understand learning, be that the language of the mark scheme, the language to explain what's going on in their head, so that all of these things aid their learning. And again, it's not very easy to read that, but you only need to read the bits in bold, because basically what that says is there's more than one way to do it. I think not that long ago, you may well have been under the impression, I know we probably were as teachers, that there was only one way to teach a lesson, and if you didn't teach it that way, Ofsted wouldn't like it. That's not the case anymore, I'm glad to say. It never was the case, but I'm glad that Ofsted have realised that too. There is not just one way to teach a lesson. It doesn't have to start this way, go through this method, finish in this way, but learning must take place. And so now inspectors will be looking for all sorts of different types of lessons. North Yorkshire County Council have produced what was a draft policy when I first did this training. It's now, today I just got an email saying it's now the real policy, so we're ahead of the game here at Irminstead. Just saying how behaviour for learning can be placed under 6 headings. How you start the lesson off, how you explain what's going to happen in the lesson, the way that adults interact with pupils in the lesson, the way that pupils are engaged, group work, independent work, whole class teaching, the way that you check that that learning's actually gone on, and the way that you leave the lesson. And again, you don't need to read all of that text on the board. Again, as I said, this is part of a bigger presentation, but those are the 6 elements of a good lesson. So some of that is classroom management, some of that is that old-fashioned word routine. So it's about how boys enter classrooms, it's about how they sit down, it's about how they start their work, it's about how they pack up at the end of lessons and leave your classroom. But that is just a tiny part of behaviour for learning, because really it's about engaging them in what's going on in the classroom. And they're the facts. People, all of us, learn best when we're interested, involved, and challenged by our work. A lot of this overlaps with the things that Mr. King was just talking to you about. So what is engagement? Okay, so a little quiz here. There's not a prize for the winner other than personal self-esteem. Okay, is it an important appointment? Is it that? I like to think it is. Or is it the last one? Come on, somebody, hands up, active engagement. You think it's C, do you? Who agrees? Well, you're all wrong. Okay, it's about pupils constructing their own understanding. It isn't about somebody sitting there working hard if they don't really know what they're doing or why they're doing it. So it's far more than just being busy. And you're more likely to be engaged in your learning rather than just be busy when you're given opportunities to work things out for yourself. For example, write your own questions to exams, mark somebody else's answer. That's how you are far more likely to learn because you are actively engaged. And these are just some of the things that help. Pupil-teacher relationships. You know, that kind of classroom where it's okay to make a mistake, where we're all involved in this together. The physical environment, but also the ground rules and the routines. Those things are really important to set in the right atmosphere for learning. And again, here, just some advice for staff about how you make sure that those things happen. I'm not going to read all of those things out for you. You might just want to scan over them. But this is what we're really about, deep learning. Not that kind of superficial learning that, yeah, I kind of got that, could memorise that for a moment. If I had a test tomorrow, I'd be able to recall some of the answers. We want to make sure that the learning that goes on is far deeper than that. And again, some of these ideas are things that Mr. King's already talked about in terms of mindset, AFL, etc. But let's just have a little test here. Okay. When pupils are simply memorising or reproducing, it can appear that you're really making progress, you really understand what's going on, and you're really learning. So how about this? I'm going to read it to you, because I'm an English teacher for silent poetry. Who recognises it, by the way? Jabberwocky, brilliant. 'Twas brillig in the slithy toes, to gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogroves, and the mommy raths out graves. Can you tell me something about the toves, please? What were they like?
Not a clue.
They were slithy.
They were slithy. Come on, read it. Are you listening? Slithy. And what were they doing in the wave?
They gyre and gimble.
Well done, you can have a merit, that's brilliant. And the mommy raths, what did they get up to?
Outrage.
Yeah, fantastic. What a fantastic class. But basically, it's rubbish, isn't it? You can answer the questions. I could have given you 20 questions on that you could easily answer, but you haven't got a clue what's going on. You haven't really learnt anything, but you've been busy for a whole lesson. I might even got you to draw something at the end of it, which might be fantastic. Actually, that might have been fantastic. If I'd said, okay, I want you to draw me a tove, you would actually have had to think about it, wouldn't you? So possibly what seems like the least useful activity may have been the best activity there in terms of thinking. And these are the activities that we're wanting to encourage staff to use, and I have to say, most staff have been using in our school for a long time. It's kind of just to familiarise yourself with the kind of things that boys might be doing in lessons. Directed activities related to text starts. Basically, reading activities and later writing activities, because that's kind of what you do in school, in every subject. You read in some kind of way and you write. Some of the ways that you can read. So, filling in the gaps in a text, completing a diagram, completing a table, putting a text together in the right way, predicting what's going to happen in a text, but not necessarily in a very simple way, perhaps in a really creative way. And again, those kind of activities happening in all subject areas. So we're not just talking about English here. Activities that you might do with a complete text. Again, the sort of things that get you to represent a text in a different way. It proves that you understand it. It proves that you can read it because you can reproduce it in a different way. And again, perhaps not necessarily an English lesson, a science lesson, a history lesson. in a way that shows deep learning has gone on. What are the advantages of this type of activity? Well, it's all the things that we've talked about before. It's giving the initiative over to the pupils again, it's challenging, and it's allowing them to lead their learning. And thinking skills, pushing that what could be a very simple activity that little bit further, again, like the example that Mr. King gave about giving someone an answer and asking them to come up with the question. And asking pupils to talk about how they've completed a task. Again, giving them the language that helps them to understand what they've learned, how they've learned, exactly what's going on in their heads. Okay, let's have a go at a thinking skill. I'm going to choose this one, odd one out, because I like this one, and it's the one on the slide. Right, which is the odd one out? Obviously, we have a no hands up policy here, I'm afraid. Odd one out. Do you tell me which one you think is the odd one out? You think it's a plum. Tell me why you think it's a plum.
Because plums are fruit.
Okay, and the others?
Vegetables.
Okay, so plums and odd one out is fruit. Who thinks that's the right answer? You can put your hand up this time. Okay, okay. It's a right answer. Is it the only right answer?
No.
Okay, give me another one then.
Carrot. It's the only orange one.
Okay, carrots is the only orange one. Do you all agree? Another right answer? Okay, we'll stop now. But we could go on with this for a long time. And I guess some of you, with the whole plum thing, some of you, maybe not, you may not be doing this, but this would happen in a classroom, I can guarantee it. Somebody give me a right answer and I'll say, do you think that's the right answer? And they'll look around and see how many people put their hand up and then they go, it must be because they all think it is. Yeah, I think it's the right answer. Well, yeah, it is the right answer, but it's not the only right answer. And so it's about experimenting with what's right, what's also right, what's wrong. What's a wrong answer up there? Somebody give me a wrong answer.
Potato.
Potato, why?
Not there.
There's always one, isn't there?
The odd one out.
Yeah, you can stick it. Oh, get it. You can stick it. Right, out of the words that are on the screen, which is the wrong answer? Which isn't the odd one out?
There isn't one.
Okay, I disagree. Because I might say, I'm going to make them think now.
Yeah, go on then.
Which one isn't the odd one out? Well, I'll say they're all things that I could buy in greengrocers, so there isn't an odd one out there. So it's just getting people to think the other way around. Think about right answers, wrong answers. Just think. That's really what we're wanting boys to do. And finally, we get them to write too. You know, this never goes down as well with boys, but it's really important. But it's really important, and I think particularly for boys, that when you ask them to write, there's a reason for them doing it. So a purposeful context, something perhaps to support or initiate their writing. Collaborative writing, you know, writing together in groups, writing together perhaps for a real purpose, like presenting to you lot tonight, or a school magazine, or those kinds of ideas, and obviously writing frames, which I'm sure you all have experience with. But obviously familiarity breeds contempt. If in every lesson we're doing the same activities, that's just going to become dull and stale. I remember when PowerPoint first came on the scene, and every time you went to a training exercise there was a PowerPoint, it just became not PowerPoint again. Sorry, we're using it tonight. And remember, variety is the spice of life. So I want your sons to come home from school and tell you what's happened in their lessons, and I want you to be interested every day because it's something different, not because it's that same old thing that they did in English last year, or even that same old thing that they did in English when your younger son was at this school. But the most important thing is that you ask them, yeah, but what did you learn in that, and how did you learn that? Because that's the thing that's going to equip them most for later in life. Thank you.